Forward so much to chatting to Tree. We've met, I think, only on one occasion. I think it was you came to my book signing. I think in December.
Yeah.
But we seem to have been in kind of quite interesting other forms of contact over the last few months, which we'll discuss a little bit. Well, maybe we'll discuss it now. Actually, I know that you've mentioned it on the. No, let's firstly, let's explain who you are, what your background is, and indeed why you're here on this show. So I think let's do that first, because there's a lot of things I don't know about you, so I'm keen to find out as well. So who is Tree Carr, and what is the magic that makes her her?
Oh, I'm under so much pressure.
Whoa.
Who am I? What am I, and who am I? Well, I guess it all started with the Big Bang, and that's kind of where it all began. In the beginning, there was the Word, and then the rest is history. Well, I guess that's something that I've always been trying to figure out. I'm still trying to figure out who I am, actually. So that's thanks for putting that question in my mind, because it's one that I've had in my mind since I was like a tiny little kid. I remember like my first moments of consciousness as a very young child. I have a really unusually deep memory, and I can remember being in my crib. I can remember my mobile, like there were bumblebees above my head. I also remember, first being conscious, the first kind of going, what is this? And I was really young. I do also remember being very young and not being able to see across the room clearly, where it was blurry. So my early memories are of these sort of view of my perception. So my eyesight didn't feel fully formed. I remember really looking at the wallpaper in my home growing up, like from my crib, and really trying to.
So what age would you have been then?
Crib age. So I mean, like a newborn baby up until 18 months old, maybe.
That's extraordinary, because effectively, we know from research about how babies' eyesight works. That's exactly how it is. So effectively what you're remembering is exactly what was taking place. Did you remember having a concept of who you were, or were you just something perceiving the world around you?
That's exactly it, Anthony. I felt like I felt more like I was consciousness perceiving things. I remember the first time I was aware of my corporeal body, and I remember really looking at my feet as a child, like a really little child, looking at my little pink feet and really studying them and thinking, wow, I'm a weird little thing. And just really realizing that my consciousness was somehow different than, it didn't really connect much with my body. I felt like I was an alien most of the time looking at it. But apart from these memories of, the wallpaper and also my vantage point, I remember being very small and feeling frustrated that I couldn't reach up to the kitchen counter. And I remember being much smaller than the chairs of the table. And I remember crawling. I remember my diaper, weird things like that. But I also remember around that time, my deep-seated memories were of lucid dreams and astral states. So to me, there was no differentiation between the two. So my earliest memories were just like, if I look back, I would define it as pure consciousness. And my earliest lucid dreams and astral sensations were of flying and traveling through space, and the velocity of space and the stars, and also the feeling of expansiveness too, particularly on the threshold of sleep. So I was, a tiny kid, and being able to be aware that, my consciousness extended from the physical body. So that was kind of the early days. I grew up in, my formative years were on a commune in the 70s. So I grew up around nature. I grew up with no outside pop culture. I didn't have television growing up, never watched television, didn't have radio or, anything from the external world. So because of that, I was really encouraged, my family really encouraged music and reading, and I loved drawing and painting. So I grew up really quite connected to my inner worlds. So I really think that helped set the stage for me moving forward, because I didn't have the external influences. And I do think that my brainwaves were able to stay as theta for like maybe longer than kids who are just thrown in front of a television, and the way you go. Nowadays it would be like a laptop, or it would be a phone or whatever.
Were you premature? Were you premature or anything? Was there anything unusual about your when you were in your mother's womb, or did you go full term and everything?
I went full hog. I came out really fat. I was like a really big baby. I was like the biggest baby in the family. I was 8 pounds 6 ounces, and
wow.
I was huge, and I'm like, I was definitely not very mature. I was a fully formed human. Like I was probably like a Christmas turkey when I came out. In terms of prenatal events, I had some prenatal events memory occur in an ayahuasca journey once years ago, where I was brought back to my mother's womb. That was probably the most remarkable experience of my life, and transformative. It was so visceral. It was so real. It was so like, yes, this is happening. Yes, I experienced this. Experienced the whole womb life, which wasn't a great one, to be honest, because there was a lot of transference from my mom. And I experienced my birth in this ayahuasca journey. So I came out into the world going, I shouldn't be here. This is terrible. So it didn't start off on a good foot. But through that journey, I experienced a lot of healing from that plant medicine journey. Anyway, that's a whole other story. But who am I and what am I? I'm still working it out. Apparently, my name's Tree, and I'm turning 48, and through my life, I've been on a journey, a mystical journey of consciousness and also creativity, because I'm a musician and I love the arts, and I'm a filmmaker too, so it's a form of expression. And that was one question that I really found difficult growing up when I went to proper school system, was like, what do you want to be when you grow up? It was like, I don't know, I never want to grow up. What do I have to be anything? But what I'm actually doing, what I actually do here at the moment, what feels like a purpose for me is I'm an author, I'm a death doula, I'm a dreaming guide, and I work in the realms of divination. So that includes the esoteric guidance systems of the tarot, runestones, clairvoyancy, mediumship. So yeah, currently that's what's going on.
Wow.
Who knows what I'll be doing in 20 years though.
Wow. What a life, because I was looking you up on Google and everything else, and I was really intrigued about just what an interesting life you've led, and I thought this is profoundly interesting. This lady is somebody that really has pushed the boundaries and done a lot of very, very exciting things, so all congratulations to you. Okay, well, let's go back a little bit now. We touched upon what is consciousness. So in your opinion, did consciousness appear out of the Big Bang? Has it always been with us, or is it something that's developed over time? What's your opinions on this?
Yeah, so I like to go back to the very beginning. The Big Bang, seemingly the universe came out of nothing, absolutely nothing. And science would say that, but it just out of the void came this, this explosion. To me, I always relate everything into my life back to that concept and that theory and that reality, because to me, that's very important. So in the beginning, there was just something that came out of the void, something that came out of nothing. So that's why I think anything and everything is possible in this life, in this multiverse, because based on that theory alone, which is a really remarkable theory, by the way, that something as vast as the universe can come out of absolutely nothing. To me, that says that absolutely anything is possible. From that standpoint, I see myself as an explorer. Every single day I wake up and I think anything is possible today. Anything. The Big Bang happened. I'm part of this. I'm here. Anything is possible. So that's why, I've tried everything in my life so far. I see life as almost like a lucid dream. It's like every day, what can I do? What can I do? What can I create? What instrument can I learn? What language can I learn? What, like, you know, what can I get up to? What can I experience? So I think that, so what was that came out of nothing? I also look at, you know, various texts and cultures and ideologies and spiritualities and what they think too. And there seems to be, you know, the thought that out of nothing came the Word, and the Word was God, and God is the Word. So there was this interchangeability. I think the Word is consciousness. So out of void came consciousness. I think the Word is consciousness, because what is consciousness? It's the words in our head. It's the thoughts. It's our perception of all of our senses that make us know this present moment. So that's how I see consciousness. It's been there from the beginning. Who owns it? I don't know. Is it a god? Is it a goddess? Is it a power? Is it a force? Is it me? Is it you? Is it us? Well, that's the great mystery, and that's what makes it so fun to try to work it out.
Do you know, it was quite fascinating this morning. We were having problems with our dishwasher, and we had a guy come round to help us with the dishwasher. And as it's normal, people always ask me, you know, what do you do for a living? And I explained that I was a writer and everything else as well. And he said, and all people always say, what do you write about? And again, I mentioned I was writing, you know, I write about consciousness and what it is to be human and everything else as well. And it was really interesting. This guy turned around and he said something almost exactly the same as you're saying. He said, do you know what I believe is happening? And I said, what? And he said, I think we are here in order for us to allow the universe to become aware of itself. And I thought, this is a profound statement from somebody, you know, that's just, not that I'm not being difficult here in the sense that, you know, he was only fixing my dishwasher because I could never fix a dishwasher. But it was just the profound depth of the concepts he was talking about. So clearly a lot of people think about these things. And I think your point there about, you know, from the biblical, you know, the first was the Word, and the Word was made light or whatever. It's fascinating. There seems to be a link here with consciousness in this. So when we dream, do you think we go into, well, where do we go when we dream? You know, what are dream states? In your opinion, what is the dream state?
So I think the dream state it's an experience of consciousness as our body is sleeping. That's how I would explain it. So it's a continuation of our consciousness in a different state, in an altered state. So we can have altered states of consciousness through a dream state. We can have them through trance states, have them in comas, meditations. We can have them in psychedelic experiences. So I just see them as another form of consciousness, but just in a slightly altered state because of the biological function. So I like to think of the dreams as a layer of the multiverse, that we are experiencing aspects of the multiverse. The multiverse being the theory of that there's multiple layers or dimensions, and that we can pull into those. Why do I think that? I don't know. I just trust it. And I feel it feels kind of groovy to me. So I just go with it. And a lot of things that I go on are out of a sense of adventure or exploration, intuition, and, you know, why not? And then so I just explore, and that's how I do it. So I like to see dreams as layers of the multiverse. I know, like, biologically, there's things going on too. Obviously, you know, we have our sleep cycles, we have our REM states, our brainwaves are functioning within dreams too. So certainly there's a shift of biological function in the brainwave that puts us in a dreamlike state, the theta state or the delta brainwave. So obviously there's a lot going on too in the physical body, but it all works in tandem. I see it all works in tandem. That's why I'm fascinated by brainwaves and like really surfing them and really getting into these sort of slower brainwaves in order to grab the good layers, get into the good layers and find the good stuff, either information, insight, bits of inspiration or dreams. It's all there. Even when we're awake, we can get there.
So when you're in these dream states, presumably you meet other people in your dream state. And have you ever been in circumstances where you've suspected that the people you meet in the dream states are actually other people who are also dreaming or also sharing that state with you? Or do you think they're just creations of your own subconscious?
Yeah, so when I first started off as a conscious dreamer, and intuitively when I was growing up, I just assumed that these are real people. I mean, that was just the default setting. It was like, yeah, of course, they're just people out there in the multiverse. But as you get older and you learn how modern constructive science works and psychology and whatnot, you obviously learn all that, the fact that they could be projections of your unconscious mind as well. But then I started to really do the dream work and realize, well, there's certain dreams that do feel like you're working with archetypes and symbologies. But then there's other types of dreams, specifically lucid dreams and astral states, where it feels like you are actually, these are free will, free thinking beings, sentient beings, and it feels slightly different. In a lucid dream, I feel that the way I've been able to get a prompt that this is actually another dreamer somewhere else is that they kind of almost seem like they're out of it, like they're sleepwalking, and they're sort of not completely there, and they're not completely engaged. And I do this hilarious thing in lucid dreams where sometimes I go up to dream characters who I believe and feel like are sleeping dreamers, and I will get their attention. I'll be like, "Hey, I'm in your dream. Wake up," like do something, and I'll like shoot energy out of my hands and try to make them become lucid within their dream. I've had loads of lucid dreams like that where I've tried to wake up sleeping dreamers. I've also had lucid dreams where it feels like it's not other dreamers, human dreamers, but it feels like, sentient beings that are either guides or they're higher dimensional. And then also in the astral plane, coming upon entities that are either free-ranging entities, just looking for whatever, people who have passed and are there, like, I guess you could say souls or spirits or ghosts of people who are there, even animals too, not just humans. Thought forms, people's thought forms, like manifest, where it's very clear that I'm dealing with a thought form in some kind of way. So there's a lot of interesting, of course, modern science couldn't prove any of this. I'm just going with what my observations are. And like I said, my intuition. Also, I'm really open to being disagreed with. That doesn't hurt my feelings at all or make me feel challenged in any way. Because I really believe in direct experience, and I really think that that's the true heart of a mystic and an explorer is to go at it and do it and see for yourself.
Well, I think this is profoundly important, isn't it? That in the final analysis, all we are a consciousness which is experiencing something through our senses, and three-dimensional consensual reality is exactly the same as dream reality in the fact that it is being processed and being presented to us. Now, one of the things that intrigues me is I've interviewed many individuals like yourself, and one of the things that seems to be a consistency in people in dream states or out of the body states, but particularly in lucid dreaming and related phenomena, related experiences, is this: when you encounter other people and they seem to be, as you say, in a kind of a sleep state, as if they're not fully functioning and not fully aware. And I'm reminded here of when you're on Second Life, the sort of the virtual reality scenario, and you come across somebody's avatar who the avatar is not being used by the person on the computer, so it's just there. And is this the same, that we are in a permanent dual state where there's a version of us in many, many different alternate realities, and we switch from one to the other depending upon our dream state, depending upon our dream vibrational state, depending upon EEG vibrational states, whatever. We just attune into it and find ourselves in that place. And I'm reminded here of the writings of Robert Monroe, when he had a concept of I there, and he argued. Have you read the Robert Monroe books? Do you know the concept of I there?
I do, yes.
Okay, so maybe you could explain, because it come better coming from you, but very much from what you're describing here, it seems very similar. You seem to drop in to another consciousness and take over somebody else's body, or you're inside your own body.
Yeah, the whole concept of the avatar is a really good way of articulating it, and certainly that's with Robert Monroe and a lot of other schools of thought have really been working around that concept a little bit more. So the concept of our consciousness is seemingly somewhere else. Where is it? Is it in the quantum field? Is it in the logos? Is it in the Akashic record? Like where is it? Is it in another dimension? And that our corporeal bodies are just like the little avatars that we've designed in order to carry out the game or the adventure in some kind of way. I really do feel that resonates in a way, just because if I look back at my earliest awareness of consciousness, it really felt like that. It really felt like I was able to kind of shift in and out of my human little physical body when I was a kid really easily. And I was aware that I was in this vehicle, like this like flesh suit. And I would marvel at how weird it was sometimes by just really looking at it. So there is something very tangible about that. And I think as we are progressing and evolving with technology, it's almost as though technology is mirroring this concept. So a lot of people are marvel at the whole Second Life and isn't that amazing? And aren't video games amazing? It's like, well, perhaps it's only like a little, it's kind of a rudimentary example of what we're already doing anyway. And what's more amazing is this, this thing, this tangible thing, this thing called reality, called life. But people miss the point. And I think that's a big thing. We were talking about like dream characters in the sleep state, or the Second Life avatar just kind of unconscious and waiting for the consciousness to come in. I see that on the streets of London all the time. Just be on the tube or commuting. It's just like everyone's asleep. And even more than ever, everyone's just like glued to their phone, just sort of like in this like holding pattern. So you could even take that analogy one step further and just say, well, yeah, it's all around us. Like, the biggest waste I see in life is when people don't engage in their conscious, don't realize how amazing this is. We got so much around us that's pushing us towards having experiences, VIV technology now, like virtual reality, or SimCity, I remember ages ago when that came out, or Second Life, and we're becoming more involved in that. It's almost like we want to escape from this, but this is incredible. Where did we go wrong that we don't see this as being absolutely phenomenal? That every single moment that we awake, not even when we awake, when we're still sleeping, our consciousness can be engaged in some kind of way, and anything's possible. Like absolutely, anything is possible. So, yeah, I just went on tangent. Sorry.
No, not at all. Because a lot of the things you were saying there have intrigued me for a long time. And for instance, the concept of people not being fully awake within this environment reminds me of the writings of Gurdjieff and Ouspensky. And Ouspensky had this concept called byte people, BYT, which are people that are not fully awake within the environment. Now, to me, it sounds probably very arrogant of us to say that some people are not as awake, but it is self-evident that there are people who, like the guy I was talking to earlier on today, who see wonderment everywhere. And your point, I think, was an excellent one. The idea that it's amazing what we're experiencing now. We don't need to escape from it. It's just being. And existing is phenomenal.
Absolutely.
And exciting, anything we can understand. But the thing is, going back to the dreaming then, we believe that from your experience, you think that it's likely that we can mutually dream. If we can mutually dream, does that mean we can bring back information that we will experience, or a perception that we would have with somebody else in the dream state, which we can then bring back into this reality to prove that the dream state is just as real as this one? Have you any examples of that from your experience?
Yeah, so I love mutual dreaming. I think it's just so exciting, and I feel like, yeah, let's push the envelope. And even though the modern construct of science says that's absolutely impossible, I'm like, well, why not try? So I do it all the time. I try this all the time. And I think some of my first experiments have been with other dream guides as well. A good friend of mine, Jennifer Clarascore in New York City, we started doing experiments with mutual dreaming. And the first night I tried with her, it worked. And it was actually an astral state. So I had an out of body experience. And as I left my body, I was like, right, okay, let's go have a mutual dream. And so I basically built a portal in my mirror, just through my intention, and I passed through it, and I popped out in New York City, and had this amazing experience. First, just flying over the streets of New York City, it looked like it was about 4 a.m. There were still people milling about. I saw some homeless people, and I flew alongside this African-American woman with long braided hair, and she started having a really great conversation with me about her ancestors. and how she was looking for her ancestors. And I had a real sense that she was someone who had passed away, and that she was on the journey of the soul to be reunited with the ones that have passed. But I was really intrigued. But then I was like, oh, I got to get going. I got to go meet my friend Jennifer. So I was still looking for her, and I flew up between some really tall buildings, and then I just started free falling and just enjoying the sensation. And I just heard her. It was very interesting. It was like telepathic. I didn't see her, but I heard her telepathically saying, "This is amazing, isn't it great? Like you did it, we did it." It was this kind of like, yeah, woo, kind of thing. And then kind of came back, and then just came back into the body and woke up. And straight away, I was on my dictaphone recording the experience. So absolutely excited, because it was like, as real and conscious as we are right now. And I sent her the message, and then she confirmed her experience. Her experience was from a different vantage point. And her experience was that she was in a tunnel in the air, and she was watching me, and my hair was blowing all around, and which I thought was interesting, because I had a sense of myself falling, and that there was telepathic communication, and then I was, we did it. It was kind of like confirmed that we had connected. But probably one of the best and most interesting mutual shared dreams that I experienced was at a retreat that I was holding in London with the Psychedelic Society just this past autumn. And it was a small group of people, about 13 dreamers, that joined me for the weekend in London. And I took them through my conscious dreaming practice, and we had worked with several Winerigens that I work with. See, these are dreaming plants and herbs. So, we were doing meditations and drinking the different brews. And I was showing them lots of different techniques. And we did one on mutual dreaming. So there was one woman there, she was really lovely, and she came to the retreat because she couldn't remember a dream for like decades. Like it was like 30 years, she couldn't even remember one dream. So she actually just wanted to come to the retreat just to get a dream, let alone, it wasn't really, she didn't really need a lucid dream. She just wanted any dream. And so part of the practice of the retreat was in the mornings, everyone would have to wake up and straight away just write their dreams in their dream journal. And just keep it there, so no one was speaking with each other. That was part of the practice. And then straight away, we would all join the dream circle, and we would share our dreams from the night before. So I would open the circle. So I opened the circle, and I shared a few dreams. I had about 3 or 4 that night. And the one I shared that all of a sudden created a commotion across the circle as I saw this woman going, like, holding her face just completely go, what? And it was just a really simple dream. I was in a hotel in Italy, and it was a pretty nice, opulent hotel, and I was there. It was some sort of event. It was a party, and it was very clear it was a fashion designer party, and there was a lot of fashionable people around, and music and photography and champagne. And I was hanging out with these 2 gay guys, and I didn't know, they were not known to me at all. They were a lot of fun. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna hang out with gay guys. They're great. And then they were trying on loads of different clothes and having a good time. And they said, let's go explore the hotel. So I went into the lobby, and one of them called the lift, and the lift came down, and we got into the lift, got into the elevator. They were continuing to dance and have fun. And we pressed the button, and the lift shot up like a rocket, and then it stopped, and then it plummeted. And then it kept doing this, and it was fun. It was like, woo, we're on this hilarious, fun ride. And that was the dream. It was just really brief. But as I was explaining this dream, the woman across the room was just absolutely gobsmacked. So when it got to her turn to share, she first off exclaimed that she had her first dream in decades. And she felt so high from it. And she said, and not only that, Tree, you had the exact same dream as me. So not only she had the first dream ever, I had the exact same dream. For her, from her vantage point, her dream was she was in this party with her 2 gay friends who are known to her. She's Italian. She's a photographer, a fashion photographer. So that made sense. That's part of her life, part of her world, part of her scene. And they were partying, drinking, hanging out, went into the lobby, decided to go into the elevator, got into the elevator, same action, rocket ship up. And so, her mind just slightly got blown open that day, where she was just couldn't believe, first she had a dream that got activated, but not only that, it was the same dream as mine. Incidentally, this woman was sleeping only like 10 meters away from me, because on my retreats, I try to do, you have an option of communal sleeping if you want to, try that out. So I always communally sleep with in this sort of situation. So, maybe dream telepathy is something that's tangible. I don't know if the proximity had something to do with it, but obviously the intentions, because before we went to bed, we made intentions of connecting in dream space. So that was a really big part of it. We did a meditation. So that was really great. I mean, you could call it, maybe it was an uncanny coincidence. Maybe it was just some kind of quantum entanglement or telepathy, or, who knows? It's pretty cool. And why not explore more? So this is a really big part of what I do. I try to actively let's just do it. Let's just, try these situations. Let the science catch up if it needs to catch up. If anyone wants to do some sleep lab experiments, yeah, just hit me up. But I think it's important to try these things, to have direct experiences. So those are just a few examples, but I've got lots of them.
they were very good. The reason I was particularly intrigued, as you were describing them then, I suddenly realized that it's incredibly difficult for a skeptic to prove that two people have had a mutual dream. Because, of course, all that happens is somebody says, I then dreamt this, and then the other person agrees and said, yes, I saw that as well. But there's no third party that can act as an arbiter to say that they really were sharing a dream, but both you and the other lady, you both know that's what you experienced.
But Anthony, you have proof, because my thing is, at my retreats, we write in our dream journals first thing in the morning as soon as we wake up, and you don't chat with anyone. So there is proof. The proof is I recorded in my dream journal, she recorded in hers. When we joined the dream circle, then it was brought to attention, and we both have written proof. You could do this in a controlled sleep lab, of course. You just need to have some monitoring. The people who, saying, you're here, I'm your chaperone, you're my chaperone. You write down your impressions and you tell the impressions to us verbally. You can do it if you really want to do it. But I'm sure there's other pitfalls along the way, but I'm sure it can be done.
Do you know, that would be so important, because one of the great things we need to find, isn't it, is the smoking gun. It's the proof that we need to say, at least to modern science, you need to follow up on this in one way or another. And clearly, evidence like that, they will always argue, they'll always fall back on, won't they? They'll always fall back onto, it's coincidence. And there's no response to that, other than if you argued coincidence for everything, every single legal case could never be proven, because you could say, coincidentally, I happen to be in a place where a crime took place. So we have to be reasonable about this and say that the wealth of experience, the number of people that experience these things, clearly state at least there is something of importance taking place here, something that is well worth investigating. And it's really good to know there's an awful lot of younger scientists coming along now that are really interested in pursuing this in greater detail. So moving then, you mentioned quite interestingly that could it be something to do with entanglement? Could it be something to do with non-locality, what is taking place in shared dreams? So do the laws of physics that we understand within this environment, do they apply in these alternate realities that you visit when you go into altered states of consciousness and dreaming states?
Yeah, I think it's science-based. I think if you could really get down to the maths underneath all of it, that's probably what you're looking at. Like I said, I do enjoy science quite a bit, and I do like to have one foot very much in the pragmatic. But like I said, I do like to have the other foot really much in the exploratory field too. But I'm sure there is something obviously going along, and some people might feel really drawn to figuring out the code behind that. But from what I've gathered through my explorations in these these dream states and the astral, is that consciousness is not an individualistic pursuit. Consciousness is a collective pursuit. There's something that is, it's much bigger. I would even go so far to say, Anthony, that we're the same consciousness. We're just having different experiences. And I've been shown this countless times in lucid dreams. I've been shown this countless times in the astral state. And there's something amazing about that. It's absolutely boundary dissolving, because what happens is when you have that epiphany and that eureka moment that we are all the same consciousness having different experiences, you change as a person. It not only completely makes you question the nature of reality. It links you in with every single person. It makes you feel like a kinder, compassionate person. You feel like, I understand you, I get you, I feel your plight. There's something about it that just breaks down all the boundaries. There's something about it, I think, that is necessary in order for us to evolve not only as a species, but to evolve the planet, to evolve consciousness itself. When we finally realize that, oh, it's all one thing. And it sounds like such a cliche. You hear all the hippies say it. I grew up with all that. We're all one, man. And it just becomes like the soundbite that just doesn't really mean anything anymore. And people are like, haha, that's so cheesy. But all the clues are around us all the time. It's just whether or not you want to like swim that sea of consciousness and connect with it.
Exactly. I mean, the idea that just because it's a cheesy 1970s hippie type phrase doesn't mean that it doesn't have an inherent truth to it, because the evidence does seem to be that if you look at the research of people like Professor David Bohm and you look at the developing holographic theories at the moment and the holographic universe arguments, that holographically we know the one thing about a hologram is that there seems to be a unity within it, that within the parts is the whole, within the whole is the parts. And there's research being done at the moment by people like Craig Hogan at the Perimeter Institute, and this is what they're looking for. They're looking for the holographic nature of reality. Now, if this is the case, it does mean we can then explain non-locality. We can explain many things. But if we're a one single consciousness experiencing itself subjectively, as Bill Hicks said, these kind of experiences do happen. Synchronicities do happen. It can explain so many things, can't it? And it experience.
Oh, yeah.
So in terms of this, so moving on to that, do you think then that within these worlds and within your structures, where does precognition fit? The idea we can precognize information from the future. Have you experienced this in your life, and could you give us some examples of this?
Yeah, so I've been prone to precognition since I was a young person, and it started really getting activated when I was a teenager. And of course, when it happens, it's really disconcerting. You're just like, oh, this is creepy. What's going on? My parents have always been quite open and really easy to talk to. My mom encouraged me to, write dreams down. So I found that was a really great way to start navigating precognition. For one thing, it just got it out of the weirdness of my mind onto paper, but also it started to serve as proof that I was having precognition and precognitive dreams, because I would write down the event with the date, and then when it happened, I'd be like, oh, well, here it is. So I've got lots of proofs of the various precognitions that I've had growing up. Including things just around my house. There was a car crash that a driver that hit the tree of the front of our house. I had a dream about it that night. It was so real. I heard it in the dream, and it felt sort of astral because I looked out the window as well and saw the smoking car hitting the big old oak tree. And then the next morning at 10 a.m. it happened in real life. So things like that to, that massive tsunami that happened in the Indian Ocean. I had a precog of that 2 days before. That's all written down. And I had even like the timing of it, like that it was a full moon and really specific details. So what do I think precognition is? Precognition, I think we have it. It's an innate ability, or I think anyone can develop it. It's a sensitivity. I think it's there in order to help people. I think it's not there to go, oh, that was creepy and that was freaky, let's make a horror film about it. Even though that's fun too. I think it's there to help people, and that's why we get these little psychic hits beforehand. I'm doing it all the time with my partner. I'll have a dream, he's in the film studio, and like I had a dream of one of the gels catching fire. I text them, hey, be careful in the studio today, gel might catch fire. Just a heads up. Things like that. What is precognition? What are we tapping into? I think it depends. It's all about time, right? What is time anyway? So I don't really see time as a linear thing. And I think it's mostly because I feel like I've had experiences in my life where I saw the true nature of time and I got it. And I was like, oh my God, that's how it works. That's how time works. So I don't see it as linear, even though our modern constructive science says, no, time's definitely linear. I see it more as a column. Like time isn't a line. It's like you're in this column and everything is happening right now. And I know that sounds just really hard to get your head around. Like ancient Egypt's happening now. Like my death is happening now, my birth is happening now. But it's an illusion. Time's an illusion. So when you tap into precognition, you're tapping into the layer of the moment, the layer of now. How do we get there? Is it like biological? Do our brainwaves slow down to a certain point where we're able to tap into that field and grab a sense of something occurring a long time? I'm not quite sure. All I know is it's there, and I use it to help people. So to me, it feels like I don't want to use it to go, come on, yeah, man, it exists. You got to believe me. Like, I don't really care if someone says you're full of shit and it doesn't exist. I just go with direct experience, and it's helped people. So the bits of information that I've gotten in dreams or meditations, or seemingly sometimes out of nowhere, it just come wham, and I just got a real knowing. I just see it as, hey, it's just normal, and you help people because of it. So isn't that a nice thing to do?
Yeah, absolutely.
Polite. It's just being polite.
Well, it's one of these things again, isn't it? You know, the idea of, and I think your analogy there is a very good one about the present moment is, there is just a permanent now, and effectively we move through it almost. It's what Minkowski called block time, Einstein's teacher. And I recall, again, the writings of the American science fiction writer Philip K. Dick when he came across what he called orthogonal time, which is time that runs at a right angle to this time. Now, again, you probably know I spent 380 pages writing a book called The Labyrinth of Time around about 8 or 9 years ago. And that was my intention to try and understand what time was. And I found that after 380 pages, I was even more confused than I was when I started. Because as St. Augustine once said, you know, time is something that if you don't think about it, you understand it. But as soon as you start thinking about it, you become incredibly embroiled in this incredible mystery of what time is. Now, I've had examples in my life, and I've had examples from people of precognitions that prove that precognition is true. There is no doubt in my mind precognition is true. And once we take that as a principle, it's then a question of trying to understand what it is taking place and how it is that certain individuals can see the future and other people can't. And again, is it the argument that certain people are just more open to it, that their mind is more open to these things and they're more sensitive, their doors of perception wider open, these kind of things. And a lot of these things really come down again to the really big issues of what is consciousness, what is awareness. And from this, I'm then intrigued, and it is something genuinely, I know that some of the questions you wanted me to ask you, but this is something that has been intriguing me a lot recently, is plant consciousness. And I was reading the very last book that Oliver Sacks, the neurologist, wrote, and it was a series of papers he was putting together just before he died. And I think it's called either The Sea of Consciousness or something. I was reading it over the weekend. And he was discussing about Darwin and how fascinated Darwin was on plant consciousness and the idea that we don't realize that plants are conscious because they move at a much slower rate than we do. And because we don't appreciate it because their time scales are different. So, you know, when you put a time-lapse photograph of a plant, you can see it moving. It's just that it's too slow for us. It has intentionality. A climbing plant has intentionality. So what are your thoughts on the idea of plant consciousness? And if there is, how does it work?
So plant consciousness, I really, I believe it, I guess. I don't even know if I believe in beliefs. You know what I mean? That's a whole other conversation. But plant consciousness, I think, just getting back to consciousness, I think everything is conscious. Some people feel that animals are sentient beings and they're conscious, and science has, shown that dogs and cats, they have a sense of consciousness. Well, I think that the plant world is conscious as well, and I do feel that we can commune with the consciousness of plants when you ingest them, or even when you're around them in some kind of way. So, probably going to have everyone going, oh my God, what a tree hugger. Like, this is like totally lulz. Like, but try it out for yourself. I don't just quiet your mind and really sit with it. If you don't want to be there under a tree or in a field sitting with it, then ingest it. And what I mean by ingesting it is working with various plants that open the doors of perception or bring you into their personality. So we all know about magic mushrooms and psilocybin, San Pedro, ayahuasca. peyote. I mean, all these plants have been used shamanically for, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands of years, and they have a consciousness. They have a personality. It's just kind of known. When you do work with these plants, you really do get a strong sense that there is another being there with with opinions, with ideas, with a personality. It's something that feels very much separate from you. But I mean, perhaps we're all the same thing. So it just unlocks that part of you, perhaps. You can do your own experiments in plant consciousness without doing any plant medicine or working with highly, hallucinogenic entheogens. You probably do it anyway every morning with a cup of tea or with a cup of coffee. Or if you have a cigarette and you smoke a cigarette, you're doing it anyway. So everyone knows that, I'm tired, I need to wake up. They'll have their espresso. Well, that magic little bean is giving you some of its consciousness. It's giving you some of its energy. Yeah, you could break it down and say, well, it's all compounds, and biologically those compounds. But there's something beyond that. It's a living, it's a living being that holds its own set of codes and its own, I think, consciousness, because everything that we touch upon has consciousness. I mean, I would even be so radical and go on to say that we can give things consciousness. We can give things consciousness. And, some people who have objects, or they've got a teddy bear that they just won't let go, and they name it, and they give the teddy bear a birthday, and they give, it goes everywhere. The teddy bear's got its own Instagram feed, its own Facebook page. Like, I would even get as radical as to say, who knows, maybe you're giving this thing some consciousness. I mean, there's long, magical theories that say that, in fact, that is something that is tangible. But now we're getting into the whole concept of AI, and bringing in consciousness to seemingly man-made things and objects. But plant consciousness, very wonderful thing to engage with. It can be very healing. It can be very eye-opening. It can expand your own consciousness through some of these states. And I know some of us feel pretty expanded when we have a cup of tea in the morning. It's like, it wakes us up, and we feel like motivated. Oh, I got that idea. Oh, this idea. Let's make those lists. Let's do those tasks. So yeah, plant consciousness is something that really excites me. But it also makes me very sad, because the planet is, we're compromising our planet at a very extraordinary rate right now. And so it's in danger. But I have a theory that the plants rule things anyway. But to be continued, as it's something that I'm working on. And it's too long and complex, but one day you'll see it.
There was so many points that we could spin out from what you were discussing there. Because one of the areas that I'm working on at the moment is the concept of the egregorial, which effectively you were touching upon, when people imbue into sometimes inanimate objects a vitality because we focus in some way on them. We give them individuality. And it is as if life is a field out there, and that field can be concentrated on anything, be it a plant, be it anything. And I mean, one of the songs that really moved me many, many years ago is a song called This Shirt by Mary Chapin Carpenter. I don't know if you've ever heard it, but it is a song about inanimate objects like a shirt, and how that shirt becomes imbued with so much emotion that it almost becomes an entity in its own right. And I believe this is how we create the world around us, because we seem to bring together this kind of energy form, which is life, which is all around us, 0 point field, whatever we want to call it, and we focus it in some way. And I think we can also focus and create life forms by the act of intentionality. And we know from magical traditions throughout the centuries, this is what they've been trying to do. But I thought your point was wonderful about plants and how it is that, and your point was a very good one, that we can try and dismiss and say, you take something like ayahuasca, and it's just the chemicals in your brain that changes the way you think or the things you perceive. But that's not looking at it deeply enough. Okay, so we understand that the chemicals themselves seem to cause a reaction with other chemicals in our brain, but why does that completely change the way I perceive reality? It's the next one, isn't it, to say, well, why do chemicals make me feel different? Why is it about these things that can change external reality, unless we have got our understanding of what reality is upside down, and we become far too materialistic in the way we see things? And it's a far deeper relationship than that. And I sometimes feel that our generation and people who are thinking more deeply about this, we're tripping upon something that's so profound and so huge that one day it'll clap. One day we'll just go, oh God, yeah, of course. And it'll be so simple and so clear. But we've denied ourselves doing that because we're trapped within our own verbal understandings of how the universe work. You know, and that's why I think our little group, we're working on this. And I know we have an extended group of people now, and we're doing some really exciting things. So to finish this all off now, and we have succeeded. I mean, clearly my apologies, or our apologies to anybody watching this. The sound quality has not been good. The video quality has been very juddery, and I think this has got to do with atmospheric conditions because it's extremely hot in the UK at the moment, maybe. But Tree, how can people contact you? What are you doing? What are your future plans? Because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people out there going, this lady's really got it. She's nailing it. I really want to know more about her work. How can they contact you? Tell us more about what you're planning for the future.
You can contact me in dreams, telepathically. No, you can make it easier for yourself, and you can find me out here on Facebook, or you can find me on my YouTube channel, which is Lucid Dream Tree. I'm also on Instagram quite a bit. My name's Tree Carr, so you can find me on Instagram as well. What's coming up? I'm always doing workshops and classes, dream circles, but it's all online right now because of COVID. So all that information is on my website, luciddreamtree.com, and you can register up. And what else? I have a book. I have 2 books coming out next year. Stay tuned. In May, I'll have my book called The Conscious Dreamer, which is coming out, and I'm excited about it because it's an activity book. It's a workbook, because I really feel that people are forgetting to play, because we can get so stuck up in our minds about the science of consciousness and the science of dream work, or the science of what the hell is all of this, that we forget to play. And I think that the universe is a creation. It's a creative process, and that's like there's playfulness in it. There's like it's like a childlike connectivity. So I've designed this book. Adults can use this book and feel like they're engaging in a playful way of doing a conscious dreaming practice, and also young people can engage in this book. And then I also have a book out at the end of 2021 on death, on conscious dying. So really exploring that concept, because when you embrace death, you live better. You really just go for it. There's none of this sleepwalking through life anymore. You're like, and my work as a death doula, I realize that it's just like, it really makes you feel alive. You just embrace life and just go, this is incredible what we're having. A lot of the people I've guided through the dying process, they have regrets that they didn't live. They didn't engage with this incredible thing called life. Don't forget to play, everybody.
Wow. That is really incredible how certain things just suddenly come together, because the concept of play is something that's very much intriguing me in terms of manifesting unusual phenomenon, because I'm doing a lot of research at the moment together with a couple of 2 associates of mine on reproducing the Philip experiment, which took place in the early 1970s in Toronto. And without going into details about it, one of the things was that there were a group of individuals who got together, were able to create an entity which seemed to have independence of them. And one of the ways they did this was by becoming childlike, by singing songs and being happy and full of fun and joking and playing games. And it seems that, what it says in the Bible, you have to become as a child to, I don't know what the line is, but effectively it does seem to be sometimes we need to rediscover that kind of childlike wonderment of the universe. And in doing so, we can access areas of the universe we deny ourselves, because we are in what transactional analysis, Eric Berne many years ago used to have the concept of child ego state, parent ego state, and adult ego states. And effectively, we spend so much of our time in adult ego states, we don't realize that the child ego state is just as valid as an ego state as anything else. And effectively, suddenly the doors of perception can be opened because we're in that area. So, Tree, that is really wonderful. I'd not really drawn upon that before. And I think that is fantastic. So really thank you for that. And thanks for a wonderful interview. Really enjoyed it. The Archons did try very hard. And my apologies again to everybody else for the half-an-hour delay. Tree and I tried so hard to make this work because we were not going to be defeated in any shape or form. And our tenacity has obviously borne fruit. We will not know how well this has gone till we stop, because it's only then we're going to be going on Facebook to see. And probably you guys have been messaging and saying, oh, the sound is awful. And it's, oh my God, it's awful. But at least we tried, which was the thing. Okay, well, thank you very much, Tree, for a fantastic hour. It's been really fantastic. And again, we must do something. And when lockdown stops, I think that our little extended group, we need to work together more.
Yes.
We really need to start thinking together, because I think we can create an incredible egregore by just all meeting up, sitting around the table and just throwing ideas out. And I think who knows what we create.
I'm super excited. Let's do it. We got to, play. Amazing.
Absolutely. Let's play. Okay, thanks everybody for that. And hopefully we'll see you all again soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.